Donald Trump now leads by over 25 points in Polymarket as his odds increase to win the 2024 presidential election. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, and I'll be giving you my latest forecast for the 2024 election. Hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this, and follow me on X in the description down below. And so, looking at the electoral map, all of the safe Republican states will be Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, as well as all of Nebraska, except the 2nd Congressional District, including Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, as well as Missouri, including Iowa and Ohio, which are new additions to the safe column. They were both 8-point victories back in the 2020 presidential election, and with the gains Donald Trump will be making in the Rust Belt and white working class voters, you will see these states move into the plus 15 column. Not to mention South Carolina, Alaska, and Maine's 2nd Congressional District will all be safe Republican in this forecast. Moving on to the other battleground states, we see that California will only be about a 21-point victory for Kamala Harris, as well as the District of Columbia, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Vermont being the only safe Democrat states, as well as Maine's 1st being the only safe congressional district for Kamala Harris in this matchup, giving her just 82 safe electoral college votes. Now you may say, well, that's very little safe states for Kamala Harris. However, I'm here to tell you that we are entering a pretty Republican national environment based out of all of the accurate polling data. If we were to look at Rasmussen reports, who got a margin of Biden +4 in their combined average from 538, spanning from October 2nd to November 2nd, they now show Donald Trump in their latest national tracker up by 3 percentage points, with 50% of the vote to Harris's 47% of the national popular vote, as well as Alice Intel, who had a Biden plus 4.7 percentage point margin for their forecast, despite the popular vote being a 4.5-point win for Joe Biden, which shows that they are fairly accurate and were only 0.2 percentage points off in the 2022 midterms. We see that they show Donald Trump up by 3.1% in the national popular vote. And if this is the case, battleground states like, the Rust Belt, like the Sun Belt, are not necessarily going to be competitive for Kamala Harris if Donald Trump's really winning the popular vote by 2 to 3. So I am here to say that I do believe Donald Trump is going to win the election with the following likely states: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Arizona, and Nevada will all be likely Republican and will put Donald Trump on top in the 2024 presidential election. Florida's early in-person voting today stands at R+26, which is a historic high for the GOP, and are even leading in counties where the University of Florida is located, which is very fascinating considering that county was pretty liberal back in the 2020 election, a Biden plus 27-point margin. Texas, Hispanics, as well as Florida will be shifting those two states to the right, but specifically Texas, the southern border Hispanics will be moving the state to the right, as well as all the people that live there. Even some reversion for Donald Trump will occur in some suburban areas as well. In Arizona and Nevada, Hispanics are another phenomenon there. That's another big deal in these two states, and the really big Republican surge in these states is going to cause a state like New Mexico to be a lot closer than expected. It's almost kind of like in 2004 when Bush narrowly picked it off, but Obama won it by 15 because Bush almost won Hispanics. Obama won them by a pretty decent margin. I believe he won Hispanics by almost over 50 points. And so that's why you see that much of a discrepancy from both elections, because the group of Hispanics moves so far to the left, and New Mexico has the highest electorate vote share of Hispanics in the whole country, which is why you'd see the shift there compared to, a state like Michigan or Georgia or North Carolina, for example. Looking at the likely Democrat states, Oregon, Washington are in the likely column, 11 and 8-point victories respectively for Kamala Harris. Colorado, just an 8-point win for Kamala Harris, as well as Illinois being in the likely margin at 9 points for Harris. New York, just a 9-point victory for Harris as well. I mean, these two states, Illinois and New York, are going to have some really rightward trends due to minority demographics and gains all across the board, as well as Colorado too, because Colorado, like New Mexico, also has a lot of Hispanics as well, believe it or not. And so that shift nationwide will actually affect Donald Trump's performance in Colorado. Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Rhode Island will all be under 15, as well as the state of Hawaii. Yes, even the state of Hawaii will be under a 15-point win due to the Asian demographic surge with Donald Trump on the national level combined with the unpopular administration and the Maui fires that did occur as well. Now, looking at the battlegrounds, the true battlegrounds where Donald Trump has already won the election, Michigan's going to be about a 3 to 4 point win for Donald Trump. Wisconsin about 6, Pennsylvania about 5, North Carolina about 8 or 9, Georgia about 6 or to 7 points, Arizona about 6 to 7, and Nevada like 5 to 6. That's kind of where I'm at with those. Florida's about an 11-point win, Texas about 12, 13 points. But looking at Michigan, that's a 3 to 4 point win for Donald Trump. White working class, voters are going to be moving to the right that cycle. And looking at these deep blue states, in my forecast, New Mexico's just a 1-point victory for Harris. Virginia about a 2-point win to 3-point win for Kamala Harris. The demographics here are going to get a lot more competitive. Donald Trump is still gaining with college-educated whites, and so this is going to push the states to the right, combined with black surge votes for Donald Trump in Virginia as well as in New Mexico. And we see up here in the north, Minnesota is going to be very competitive, a tilt margin in the forecast as of right now, including New Hampshire. Both of these states are in the tilt Democrat column, as well as Maine at large being in the lean Democrat column, alongside Nebraska second, still being lean blue due to its leftward trend. And so looking at the electoral map, Donald Trump is just crushing Kamala Harris this election cycle with a 312 to 226 victory, but with a sizable win in the popular vote, which makes all the battleground states essentially not even competitive and basically hands him the election. And if this is the result, we will find out who wins on election night. And you may say, well, this is very interesting. Why do you have Donald Trump winning the election so easily compared to most forecasters? Well, this is because of the Gallup polling, as well as my own national average and election model I put together, which tested to 2020, actually gives me all of the accurate state calls when you plug in all of the data. And when you look at this, guys, you see that Donald Trump is doing very well in the Electoral College. He's going out here really putting on a masterclass performance in some of these battleground states. For example, look at Arizona, 5.5, Georgia, 5 points. Michigan, almost a 5-point win. It's basically a 5-point win almost. It's about there. Minnesota's about a tilt state. New Hampshire, half a point for Kamala Harris as of right now. New Mexico, just a 1-point win. Virginia is actually kind of a high margin for Harris right now. Not exactly sure why that is the case. We'll see how that develops, but it is a 4.5-point win for her in Virginia. But I do actually think that's overestimating her as of right now. Wisconsin, 7, PA about 6 points, North Carolina about a 7-point win in the model. But when we look at Gallup, this Gallup site puts together a really comprehensive polling analysis on metrics they've gone back and conducted ever since the 90s and even the 40s. And it shows that Republicans are leading in party identification for the first time ever since this metric has even been recorded. We also see that right now the Republican Party leads on the two biggest issues, economy and immigration, as well as leading on the question of Americans' opinions of which political party is better able to keep the U.S. prosperous. That's a 6-point lead for Republicans. We see economic confidence is at a pretty much all-time low besides 2008 and 1992. And when the economy was negative like this, you saw a bad loss for the incumbent party. Notice in elections where it's been a moderate win to an even competitive election, you see a single-digit negative economic confidence. Even 2004 was a pretty, tight election, and that was a +1 economic confidence. We even see here national satisfaction, 2024 is 22%. The last time it was at this number was 1992 when the incumbent Republican lost by a pretty big amount, George H.W. Bush, where he lost by a pretty good margin to Bill Clinton in the next presidential election. So that's another big factor in this. And looking at Biden's job approval, 39%. Right now, we see that here in his job approval, and 48% threshold is the threshold that presidents need to have in order to win re-election. At least 48% or higher, because that's what you notice. Even if you see here presidents who usually get re-elected, you see Obama essentially had over 50%. In 2004, over 50%. Look at 1996, almost 50% was leading the popular vote by a pretty decent amount. 1988, basically 50%. I mean, George H.W. Bush was basically the pseudo incumbent. Reagan over 50%. Looking at, for example, in 1980, the incumbent got 41%, did not win. Here we had that Jimmy Carter actually got about 50, and he defeated the incumbent. Gerald Ford was basically right at the threshold in order to win in terms of his national vote share, and Ohio was really close. If that would have flipped, he basically would have won the general election at that point. Look at 1972, the incumbent Nixon had 61, so he won. 1964, Lyndon B. Johnson represented the incumbent party, got 61%, and then won as well. So it was very interesting to kind of see. It's very interesting to see how that actually plays out. And now we saw that Donald Trump got 47% and basically lost the general election. But it seems like he's on track to get higher than that this time around. If he's at about 48%, which he already is according to RCP, which has underestimated him, at that point, it's going to be pretty difficult for Donald Trump to lose the election cycle. Kamala Harris's favorability ratings and a lot of the polls have been inflated. The Democrat electorate in the poll is very skewed left, so that's another problem as well. And even when you look at this Cook Political Report analysis that I put together here, when I plug in all of my demographic margins, we see Donald Trump actually has a way bigger victory than expected. He actually wins 329 and is picking up all of the states, like I said he would, by even bigger margins than I even have, including Colorado being under 5 and Virginia being a lot closer. But some of these northeastern states are all lean Republican margins for Trump, which is very, very fascinating. And so if you guys did enjoy this video, me breaking down my forecast, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And make sure to go ahead and go to sports. We can go to betonline.com where you can actually bet on the latest political betting odds. Looking here, we can bet on who's the winner of the presidential election, who would win the popular vote margin of victory, as well as the betting odds for the states, the over and unders for the states, the House of Representatives, as well as the Senate elections. I will see you guys in the next video.